We're trying to give you a competitive advantage in your fantasy football league or your best ball, whatever it is. This really isn't going to be possible if the takes that you're hearing from me are the same as everybody else on YouTube and everybody else online. This is one of those times where you might not like what I'm about to say, but I can tell you it's my honest truth, and I think it will help you this year in fantasy football to watch the video. So I'm going to try and convince you in the next 5 minutes or so why you shouldn't be drafting Ashton Jeanty in 2025. Right off the bat, I'm going to hop into the stats so I can kind of justify that I'm not crazy and why this video makes sense. So looking into the data over the past 10 seasons, there's been 65 running backs picked in the first 3 rounds of the draft. Only 12 of them finished as top 10 running backs in their rookie season. Okay, so you say to yourself, yeah, Ethan, well, that's a lot of people. Like, that's not just the first round. So what if we look at just the first round? 13 running backs were drafted in the first round over the past decade, 8 of which finished in the top 10 of running backs in their next season, their rookie season. Okay, well, that sounds pretty good. 60% is pretty good, right? Like, I have a 60% chance of hitting on Genty, Ethan. Why would I just, like, that's perfect. That's great. That's better than half. Okay, well, here's the problem. He's going in redraft at running back 6. In best ball, he's going as running back 4 or 5. So whatever numbers I give you right here, realize it is a worse percentage for you in best ball. So in redraft, if he's going as running back 6, let's see where he's being drafted in respect to where those other players are drafted historically speaking. So of those 8 that finished in the top 10, only 3 of them finished as top 6 or better running backs in fantasy football at the running back position specifically. Okay, so now it's 3 and 8. So now it's less than 50%. So we don't like that. We're getting closer to 40%. So now we flip-flop the data. And you're like, it's still not too bad. It's almost 50-50. We're still pretty close. Okay, well, it's not just that, though. The problem is we're looking at all first-round running backs. That was the 8 that finished in the top 10. If we include the other 5, now we're going 3 into 13 again. So there's 3 players out of 13 running backs drafted in the first round over the past decade. That's about a 21% chance. Let's call it 22% chance, right? So if we're sitting at a 22% chance for and a 78 to 77% chance against of him hitting as a top 6 running back in fantasy football or higher, the overwhelming odds are telling you that you're drafting him too high in fantasy football. If we were looking before where it was 8 guys out of 13 finished in the top 10, if he was going as running back 10, 11, 12, anything below 10 or below, maybe 9 or below, then you could be pretty comfortable because then at that point in time, you're sitting at about a 60% chance of him hitting. I like that number. That sounds good. I'm comfortable with that. Whether I'm in redraft or best ball, I would like for it to be a tad bit higher in the round 1 or round 2 where he's going, because he's going at like fringe round 1, fringe beginning of round 2 player. I'd like it to be a little bit more like 70, 75%, but we're pretty close. So I'd be okay with that, but he's not. He's going as running back 6, which is very stressful because, again, you have a almost 80% chance of you overdrafting him at this spot. Okay, now let's see if I can not only convince you statistically, but also convince you situationally. Because in my opinion, I think his chances of it go down even more slightly. So of the 3 guys that did finish as top 6 players in their first season of being a running back in the last decade, one of them is Ezekiel Elliott. But that offensive line going into the 2016 season was ranked as one of, if not the highest O-line going into the season. And they finished very closely behind that ranking. That had nothing to do with Zeke. Now, I'm not saying that Zeke wasn't great or electric or explosive. What I am saying, though, is that O-line obviously didn't do him any disservices. They obviously helped elevate him to a significantly higher level than he would have played at if he was on just a league average offensive line. I believe the Raiders to have a league average offensive line at best. I think they're probably going to have more of like a bottom 10 offensive line in football, real football next year. So league average is best case scenario. So if they have a league average offensive line versus number 1, 2, or 3 offensive line, it's really hard to be like, yeah, Zeke's a good comp. No, I don't really think so because of the situation. From there, we have to go to the second one, which is Saquon Barkley, who was drafted in 2018. Now, that Giants team was nothing special. It wasn't anything great. It was actually pretty bad. Saquon was just a beast. So we're saying he's going to be like Saquon, one of the best running backs maybe ever in the NFL, and who was last year the best running back in the NFL. So that's who we're going to comp Ashton Jeanty to in his first season in the NFL. That seems a little far-fetched to me. Also, considering where Saquon Barkley played versus where Ashton Jeanty played. Little uncertain about that. Then we have to go to option number 3. So if we don't think situationally offensive line is great, can't be a Zeke. Saquon's just a monster, maybe again, like top 5 running back of all time, potentially, depending on how his career finishes up. So probably not going to comp him to that. So, okay, wait, Najee Harris. Najee Harris was the third one. Maybe it's Najee Harris, because Najee Harris isn't that great, right? Okay, I can agree to some extent that Najee Harris in his rookie season was kind of like his one glimmering moment. So maybe that's what Ashton Jeanty can have. But let's just pump the brakes. Najee Harris, his rookie season, had 307 carries. I do not believe, regardless of the Chip Kelly offense, who everybody says he loves to run the ball all the time, they don't bring in Geno Smith to primarily just pound the ball every single play. They didn't draft Brock Bowers last year as a slot tight end, realistically, to run the ball every single play. So I don't think he's going to get 307 touches. I don't think their defense is going to be good enough, even remotely good enough, for them to primarily be running the ball like it was for the Steelers when Najee Harris was drafted to them. There was a lot of defense, so a lot of opportunities to run the ball because there was a lot of low-scoring games. I don't anticipate that for the Raiders. I also don't anticipate that for the Raiders based on their division as well, because they're going to be going up against teams this year that are going to have significantly better offenses than they even had in the previous season. So if we can't compare him to anyone else but Saquon, what you're saying, in my opinion, drafting him at 6 is what? He's going to be Saquon light? Because if he's not Saquon light, you're drafting a guy as the number 6 running back, number 11, 12, 13, 14 max overall in any format. If you want to take a swing in round 3. With your round 1 pick or your round 2 pick, you need these guys to hit, because if they do not, you're not going to win in fantasy football, especially in the redraft format. There is a reason why people that had CMC last year, I want to say, what was the advance rate for him? I can't remember. It was like 13%. So that means 1 out of 10 people that had drafted CMC actually won their fantasy football championship. That's nuts. So you have a 90% chance if they don't hit first round, second round players, you're going to be in trouble. Maybe it's not always 90% because maybe CMC was number 1 overall literally. But it is going to be significantly harder and probably not impossible, obviously, but almost impossible for you to win in fantasy football if your round 1 or round 2 players don't hit. You don't really have to think much farther back than 2024. Last season, Marvin Harrison Jr. going as what? Pick 11, 12, 13, 14, just like Ashton Jeanty. I do like that Ashton Jeanty is a running back, so he relies on himself a little bit more than Marvin Harrison has to do with Kyler Murray. But still, last year people took him way too early. And again, statistically looking at previous seasons from other wide receivers, it just didn't make sense. We're drafting him before people that had already done it. Like, they'd already done what people were hoping he was going to do. So it's the same thing with Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion. It's slightly more favorable because he's a running back, but it's still not a great spot to be taking a rookie player that high in a draft in redraft. For me personally, what I would recommend for you, based on the historical data, based on the situation he's going into, I would not be drafting Ashton Jeanty this high. All right, hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully it helps you get a little bit closer to winning your fantasy football championship in 2025. Until then, y'all have a blessed day. Bye.